In Ouagadougou, June 2025. The Situation Room in Burkina Faso's military headquarters was a crucible of tension. Its walls lined with maps, red markers glowing like embers across the northern border. 17 terrorist camps, 3 training centers, 5 logistics bases, each a wound on the Sahel. Carved by years of chaos, villages burned, families shattered, children stolen into the night, forced to wield rifles instead of dreams. The French colonel, representing a Western coalition, stood tall, his voice steady, authoritative as he clicked to his final slide. "In conclusion, Mr. President," he said, his words measured, deliberate, "clearing these areas demands an 18-month operation. 5,000 coalition special forces, air support from Niger, $2.3 billion. We can mobilize next quarter ground operations in 6 months." Silence fell, sharp, heavy, the room holding its breath. Ibrahim Traoré, at the head of the table, studied the map, his eyes, dark, unyielding, tracing each red marker symbols of suffering, of sovereignty under siege. The Western proposal was familiar, a script played across Africa for decades. A costly campaign, foreign troops leading, Burkina Faso's forces sidelined, dependency woven into every promise. Traoré rose, his presence a quiet storm, his voice calm, edged with steel. "Thank you, Colonel," he said, gesturing to the delegation. "My staff and I need to discuss this privately." The advisors, caught off guard, gathered their briefcases, exited. The room, free of outsiders, hummed with anticipation, electric with possibility. Traoré turned to his commanders, young, battle-scarred, chosen for merit, not connections, sons and daughters of Burkina Faso, forged in the Sahel's conflicts. "Thoughts?" Traoré asked, his voice slicing the quiet, direct, expectant. Colonel Yakuba Ouedraogo, Special Forces Commander, leaned forward, urgency in his voice. "Their timeline is unacceptable, sir. 6 months? Villages will burn. Civilians will die." Captain Aissata Sankara, military intelligence head, her eyes fierce, added, "Their approach is flawed, fundamentally. Heavy equipment, airstrikes. Foreign troops who don't speak our languages, don't know our terrain. This has failed for decades." Traoré nodded, stepping to the map, red markers glaring, defiant. "What if we did this ourselves?" he said, pausing, words heavy, revolutionary. "Not in 18 months, but immediately. Not with foreign troops, but our own. Not with billions chaining us, but our resources." The room froze, his words a thunderclap. General Moussa Kabor, senior-most officer, spoke cautiously. "Sir, we lack equipment, air power, technical intelligence." Traoré raised a hand, silencing him, firm, final. "What we lack in equipment, we make up in knowledge. Our soldiers know every dune, every water source, every goat path, speak the dialects, understand tribal dynamics, distinguish terrorists from civilians." He pointed to a cluster of markers. "Western forces use airstrikes, armored vehicles, technology. We will do it differently." For 3 hours, the room sparked with innovation, ideas igniting like flint. Traoré outlined a plan defying Western doctrine. No overwhelming force, but terrain knowledge passed through generations. No technology, but ancient navigation by stars. No foreign soldiers, but local hunters, tracking game for centuries. Ouedraogo, skepticism fading, asked, "Timeline, sir?" Traoré's eyes locked on the map, resolute. 48 hours initiation to completion. Objections erupted, a sandstorm of doubt. "Impossible," Kabor said, voice flat. "Logistics alone, 48 hours," Traoré repeated, voice iron. "Operation Desert Storm begins tomorrow night." The next 24 hours were disciplined chaos, secrecy, precision. While Western advisors were told their proposal was under consideration, Burkina Faso's military mobilized, swift, silent. Unlike conventional armies, Desert Storm was lean, agile, rooted in the land. 3 units formed its core. Desert Shadows, 200 hunters from northern villages, tracking lizards across stone, navigating by stars, no GPS rivaling their precision. Gathering intelligence, eliminating sentries with bows, blowguns, knives. Mobility strike teams, 500 soldiers on desert motorcycles, modified trucks, crossing dunes where tanks would sink, speed their armor, knowledge their weapon. Local integration units, 300 soldiers from nearby villages, fluent in Fulfult, Mossi, Songhai, distinguishing civilians from combatants, ensuring no innocent blood spilled. The command structure, revolutionary, was commanded initiative, clear. Objectives, tactical freedom for field commanders, no bureaucratic delays, decisions made in the dust, under stars, by those who knew the land. As darkness fell, the operation began, subtle, unlike foreign forces. Desert Shadows crossed the first camp's perimeter, on foot, silent as ancestors. In the command center, Traoré monitored via hybrid communications, satellite phones, radios when secure, signal fires, runners when electronics risked detection. Blending modern ancient. By midnight, Desert Shadows infiltrated 8 outposts, movements ghostly, weapons lethal. A sentry fell to a blowgun dart, easing into sand silently. Another, guarding a cache, was taken by a bow, arrow striking the fore. He could raise his rifle. No gunfire, no alarms, just silence. Stars guiding. By dawn, 8 outposts were neutralized. Sentries gone, communications cut, main camps unaware. Hunters slipped through terrain confounding satellites, using riverbeds, wadis, paths known only to locals. In Jibo, Hunter Amadou, face weathered, whispered, "The desert hides us, always has." In the command center, Traoré's face was unreadable, eyes burning. Reports confirmed small victories. Phase 1 complete, Sankara announced, voice steady, proud, no alerts. Phase 2 begins. Western advisors, arriving for their briefing, were told Traoré was in meetings. Questions met with vague assurances of routine operations. They sat, oblivious, as the operation unfolded 300 miles away. Secrecy ironclad, trust in local forces absolute. As the sun rose, mobility strike teams surged, motorcycles, trucks weaving through terrain no tank could navigate, using dust storms. Herders' migrations as cover. Terrorist satellites saw only the desert's rhythms. By midday, 11 of 17 camps were secured, strikes surgical. A camp near Gorum Gorum, in a rocky outcrop, was hit via a hidden ravine known to shepherds. Another near Dori, in open desert, was struck during a sandstorm. Teams emerging from haze like phantoms. Lieutenant Ishuf, leading a team, shouted, "Move like the storm, brothers." Casualties were minimal. 7 wounded, 2 killed, their names whispered with reverence. In contrast, 200 terrorists captured, 150 neutralized. Crucially, 300 civilians, 86 children were liberated. Local integration units moved in, calming families, speaking dialects. Soldier Mariam in Songhai told a mother, "You're safe, sister. You're home." Terrorists alerted, fortified strongholds. Traoré's closing net strategy surrounded compounds, left one escape route, a trap. Local integration units, knowing faces, clans, waited along paths. Fleeing terrorists met soldiers who recognized them from villages, markets, childhoods. The net closed, swift, merciless. By the second evening, 3 training centers, fortified, were hit simultaneously. Desert Shadows disabled communications, Mobility strike teams overwhelmed defenses. Local integration units protected civilians. By midnight, centers were down, propaganda silenced. 4 logistics bases fell, supply lines cut. The 5th, in Mali, was isolated, crippled. The haul, 600 vehicles, thousands of weapons, ammunition. Documents detailing terrorist networks. At 48 hours, Traoré received the final report, delivered by a sand-caked runner. All objectives achieved. He gathered his commanders, voice steady, proud. "You've done the impossible," he said, eyes meeting theirs. "You've shown what we can do when we trust ourselves." Western advisors, waiting, were summoned. The French colonel, irritated, began, "Mr. President, we've heard of unilateral actions." Traoré slid a folder across, calm, unyielding. "Operation Desert Storm, concluded 1 hour ago. All camps, centers, bases neutralized. Hostages freed. Objectives secured." Silence. Disbelief. The American advisor stammered, "Not possible." "Our requirements, your doctrines, your equipment," Traoré said, voice even, cutting. "We chose differently." The debriefing tents saw Traoré outline the operation. Hunters, vehicles, local knowledge, 48 hours. Advisors wavered. Between disbelief, admiration. Why not informed? The colonel demanded. "For the same reason terrorists weren't," Traoré replied. Operational security. Too many operations fail from leaks. The truth lingered. Distrust in Western intelligence. No one challenged it. Days later, Desert Storm's impact rippled. Villages saw families return. Markets buzzed. Schools reopened. Fear lifted. Pride rose. Internationally, Western militaries questioned the scope, but evidence, imagery, testimonies forced acknowledgement. A leaked NATO report admitted indigenous approaches outdid coalition forces. Traoré addressed the nation, voice resolute. "We've been told African security needs foreign solutions. Desert Storm proves we have the knowledge, courage, capability to secure our lands." The philosophy local solutions reshaped Burkina Faso. Economic development used local resources, education wove heritage, healthcare blended tradition, technology. The Burkina model emerged, rejecting dependency. Mali, Niger adopted similar strategies, learning from Traoré. By year 3, Burkina Faso advised Niger, reversing roles. The Sahel approach, indigenous knowledge, community integration, appropriate technology was formalized. A captured terrorist commander told intelligence, foreign forces were easy. They couldn't tell civilians from fighters, broke in the eyes. Desert. Traoré's men were ghosts, knowing our secrets, moving like the wind. 8 years later, terrorist incidents dropped 87%. Displaced returned, economies flourished. The Sahel approach addressed urban security, borders, environment, always local. At a former camp, now an academy, Traoré told African leaders, "Our strength lies in our realities, our knowledge, our lands." 10 years on, at the UN, Traoré said, "Africa is not a problem to be solved." Desert Storm shows when we trust ourselves, we achieve what others cannot. The legacy was psychological, philosophical, breaking dependency. The coordinates, a decade earlier, were not just camps, but a challenge. In 48 hours, Traoré charted a path to sovereignty, trusting ancestor stars over outsiders' satellites.